It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by AgileDad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. It's Friday. It's time for our Agile, Not So Agile episode of the Daily Stand Up Podcast. And today I wanted to talk to you about the best skill I've learned. So, one of the best skills that I've learned, now, let me give you a little background. So, I have pretty much a photographic memory. When you tell me something, I tend not to forget. I know every song lyric. I know, oh my gosh. When it comes to useless information, I don't forget. But when it comes to things that I need to remember, oftentimes I do forget. So the question becomes, how do we learn to let go of what we know? And can we learn to forget? And it sounds funny because I hear so many people go, oh my gosh, I wish that wasn't a problem for me. But our entire life is filled with remembering and learning. We remember our family, our friends, the skills we learned in school, do's and don'ts of life. It's mandatory to remember laws of our country and our state, how to eat with our mouths closed, and what clothes to wear in certain situations. But as we age, as we grow older, forgetting is more valuable. When I was young, I needed to learn how to walk. You might think everyone learns to walk, but my legs aren't exactly normal. It took a few years of therapy and mental aptitude until I could actually walk. And to this day, running, while I guess I could call it running, is something I don't prefer to do. I cycle instead. For all those who know me, I love to cycle. So I wish I'd learned to speak correctly too. There are conditions that affect us. Sometimes at birth, sometimes it's something outside, external. But for me, at first, believe it or not, I was very shy and timid and didn't like to talk openly as much as I do now. And I was concerned about the impression of others and what people might think if I said the wrong thing or what if I used the wrong word. And what about my accent? I grew up in New Orleans. So for me, you could imagine, you put me in a room with a bunch of people from New Orleans, I start talking like I'm from New Orleans, no? It's just, it makes it easy for me to fall back into those habits. And people can easily see where I am. For years, I've lived in a dry climate. And many people look at my dry skin and think, oh, it must be eczema. But you could see it on dry elbows, dry knees. You could see it, on my face, where my beard comes through. And it doesn't matter how much moisturizer I use. It's just hard not to pick at dry skin because it itches. And when these things happen, it's a defect, it's an abnormality, right? So, interestingly enough, as you go through life, you find things that are, you find things that shape who you are. When I remember when I met relatives for the first time or in laws for the first time, they were shocked that not only was I the person that I am, but that I had all this untapped potential. But sometimes you get judged based on just the things that are happening on the outside. I'm not exactly the tallest. I'm not exactly the most thin. But many years later, when I ask people to grab something for me or to help me with something or to assist me, they often remember that I didn't come from the same background and that it's okay for me to be different. But that when it comes time for them to ask for help, I'm always willing to help with whatever project or need that they have. My friends growing up were always perplexed at how easy they forget some of my physical limitations, but my mental limitations just weren't there. It's just so interesting to see how when we figure out who we are, we can turn our physical limitations into mental adaptations or physical adaptations. And I think it's important for us to learn to know about life and the universe and your spiritual being and your experiences. I mean, what good is it to have knowledge if you don't put that knowledge into practice and use, if you don't internalize it and live and move forward with a purpose and direction? What happens if you don't have that spiritual grounding? So at one point, my family and friends learned that it was not about any of these physical limitations that I had or about things that happened in my past or my background. My life was shaped and really built around my ability to mentally and emotionally overcome these obstacles to help me propel myself both mentally and spiritually into a place where I felt good about who I was. And part of that meant that I had to forget about deficiencies, that I had to leave negativity at the door, that I couldn't use as an excuse, but at the same time, I didn't want people to I don't like to see anyone discredited or mistreated. I don't like to see anyone bullied. I like to see people live in a world where they can constantly pursue knowledge. In a pursuit of knowledge, every day something is added. This practice came from Tao. In the practice of Tao, every day is something is dropped. Less and less do you need to force things until finally you arrive at non action, which I think is incredible. Notice as you begin to forget more, when you arrive at a point called non action, this is known as Wu Wei, the ability to perform all things by doing nothing. Think of Wu Wei as a professional athlete's ability to play a game as the best in the world, yet when asked how it's possible, the athlete will simply say it just comes naturally. Perfect action arises out of their effortless action or non action. If you struggle a lot, whether it's with physical disabilities or emotional turmoil or multiple kids or multiple jobs or anxiety or stress or worrying about budgets, each person's journey is their own. Nothing can change what you've been dealt with. These are the cards you've been dealt, and you can complain all you want. It's not going to change the cards that you've been dealt. You can't change physical abnormalities. You can't change the way your mind processes information, but you can learn and grow, and you can update the way that you process data and the reaction that you have to the way that you process data. So, in the words of an old poker pro, I don't know exactly who said this, but it was an old Western. There are no bad lives. There's only one life. You play the hand you're dealt. This means in life, we can't always choose what circumstances we find ourselves in. Sometimes life just happens, and we do our best to do the only thing we can, and that's move forward. Letting go of the worries you're holding on to, setting down your baggage, and continuing your life will thrust you farther down the path than you've ever thought possible. Forgetting has been a key in my life. I forget about the bad treatment that others have given to me, and you can do the same. It could be a tool for you too. Stop reading about how you should be living and instead find an opportunity and go and live. Experience the sun on your face or the wind in your hair. Find people to fall in love with, even if it ends too soon. Learn everything you can from books, films, music, other people. But more importantly, internalize what you've learned to the point that you forget those were lessons to start with. And when you come around to learning them again, they'll be brand new to you because you won't be the same person. You'll have moved forward and changed. Lessons are never the same twice because you're never the same twice either. The act of forgetting isn't about disregarding what you've learned or ignoring your challenges. It's about transcending your limitations, whether those limitations are physical, emotional, societal, spiritual. By releasing the need to define ourselves by our struggles, we open ourselves up for great human potential. So if we can learn to embrace the art of forgetting, then our past will be unbound by what we think we should be and inspired by the limitless possibilities of the things that we can become. So my challenge for you this week is to try to find a way to think outside of the box and don't limit yourself. Think of something that you can do to grow or something that you could do to live your life and challenge yourself to follow through and do those things. And I assure you, if you do, that you'll help make the world a better place. That's going to do it for today. I hope that this inspired you. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, learn more at AgileDad.com. We'd love to hear from you. As always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.